Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Bonnie Bell, the Director of Brand Management here at BLBB Advisors. We're a registered investment advisory firm located in Pennsylvania, but we have clients in more than 40 states and in several countries. BLBB has been helping families plan, invest, and succeed for more than 60 years. And what has kept us here and kept our clients with us is a simple belief. True wealth management goes beyond managing our portfolio. It means being a partner with you through all the chapters of your life, including the ones that are the hardest to plan for and the hardest to talk about. Today's conversation is a perfect example of the commitment. We know that navigating the financial and emotional complexities that come with aging and caregiving is something that many families don't feel prepared for. That's why we work hard to connect our clients with not just our team, but with educators and authors and other professionals whose experience may go beyond our walls. We are honored to welcome our presenter today, Beth Pinsker, who's a journalist and the author of My Mother's Money, a practical and compassionate guide to financial conversations families need to have, but too often don't. Beth, welcome. The floor is now yours.
Hi, everybody. Nice to be here. I am going to run through some of my presentations on this slideshow, but I am also keeping an eye on the chat. So if you have any questions as we go, I am a journalist. I'm used to having like a little earpiece in my ear, and it doesn't interrupt me at all to clarify something or to answer a question as we go. So feel free to jump in, contribute your own story. We're here to talk about what matters to you, which is why I start this presentation right here with my mom. My mom was a school teacher. Her name was Ann Pinsker. She lived in Pennsylvania and New Jersey, and at the end, her and my dad moved to Florida. Um, and that's where she was when she got sick and when my dad got sick too, about 5 years before my mom. I start here to remind everybody that this kind of planning that we're talking about is not stock charts and graphs and taxes and numbers. Really, it starts with people. It starts with not just like any people, but the people we love most in the world. My mom, your aunt, your sister, your neighbor, whoever it is that you're taking care of, or maybe you're concerned about yourself as well, and the loved ones who are going to have to step in and take care of you. It's all just about the people we love and what we need to do to take care of them. And so that's why I try very hard not to use the word estate planning. When I talk about these things, I use the term financial caregiving because it's really about all of us taking care of each other. And the way I break this down in my book, which is really at base my story, taking care of my mom. The part one, you get that phone call, somebody gets a diagnosis, somebody falls, and you're just sort of thrown into the middle of it. Or, it just becomes apparent that whatever you thought was happening that was going to be a slow roll is much faster than you thought. And then you have to figure out, what's it going to cost? How are we going to pay for this? And then in part three, you get to, okay, well, now we know we have it figured out what the costs are going to be, but how are we going to take the pile of money that we have and make that work to cover the cost of the care that we need, which is a tricky one for a lot of people. And then I don't want to give any spoilers for anybody who's going to read the book or get the book, but my mom was sick for about 9 months up and down after a surgery. She got complications and infections and various things. And sadly, about 9 months after she got sick, she passed away. And so the second part of the book is all the things that you have to do after somebody passes. And if you've been in this position or you've watched if you watched your mom go through it with her parents or your dad, you know that that's a very complicated process, and there are things that you can do ahead of time to make that easier. And then at the end of my book is a workbook and resources for people because you have to start like get the whole part of the book is to get you motivated to do the work, and then the workbook is for where you actually do it. So the reason I do this is because there's a real need out there. There are lots of surveys that see how many people have a will. And no matter when you take them or no matter who you survey, there are about 70% of people who do not have a will and about 30 people who do have wills. Now, I'm guessing that this audience here is in the heavier category of having a will because you have a financial planner, you have somebody looking out for you. But for the most part, even high net worth people don't get above the 50% mark. And even business owners who from day one should have some sort of succession plan don't get above that. And then when you get to other planning documents that you need besides a will, the numbers go down from there. So like 30% is the good number. And, when you get to documents like power of attorney, it's 11%, which is just a dismal number for what I consider to be the number one document that people need to take care of their loved ones. And the reason for all of this, I thought going into this that it would be fear of death. We don't want to face our own mortality, things like that. But the top reason when they survey people for why they don't have any of this stuff done is I haven't gotten around to it. I know I need it. I know I'm supposed to do it. It's on my to-do list. I have an empty binder on my desk, but I haven't gotten around to it yet. So what I'm here today to do is create a sense of urgency for people. I'm going to tell you my story so that you can see that if you don't do some of these things that seem like hard work now, they're going to be harder and more expensive later on. And if you don't do them, what's going to happen is you're going to have a harder time taking care of somebody that you love, or somebody you love is going to have a hard time taking care of you. And what we do in families is we do hard stuff for each other. There is no task that is impossible for a mom or a dad. So if the task in front of you is name a guardian for your minor child, or, sign a power of attorney form that's going to take 10 minutes and is free, that's something that you can do as a parent so that your child doesn't suffer. Like, I think that we can all get to a place where that becomes the top of the to-do list. And people ask me all the time, they say, what is the very first thing I should do? And the very first thing is set up some sort of meeting. And what you want to do is figure out who should be in that meeting, who is in your orbit. And this sample up here is just a standard family tree chart, but not all of the boxes are connected by lines, which are blood relation lines. You might have people who are in your orbit who are not direct relatives of yours. But generally, people on calls like this are what I call the doers. And doers, and I'm a doer, so I know, they're the people who get stuff done in a family. They're the people who are on everybody's contact list to call in an emergency. Um, and if you are the doer in your family, there's stuff you have to do. You have to know that the people who are going to call and ask something of you are set up in the right way. So you might go to your financial planner, you might have all of your stuff lined up for you. But that does you no good if somebody in your orbit who you haven't planned for has an emergency. Your mom, your dad, your sibling, your child. You're going to end up not on the hook legally, but on the hook, out of love and out of moral responsibility to help take care of them in some way, whether it's financially, to put money on the table, or it's just to provide assistance, logistics. So you got to know who those people are and who's heading for trouble. And you need to get them on the phone and you need to say, hey, you need these things. You need a healthcare proxy and a HIPAA authorization, and a durable power of attorney. These are the three legal documents. The two functional documents you need are a medical information sheet and a living will of some sort. Now, those two are not legally binding, but they are very, very helpful. And I find the number one thing that you need from a financial point of view is the power of attorney. The will, and some sort of after death document, a trust, whatever it is that you're going to have, beneficiary designations, all of that is important. But if it doesn't happen, you have all the time in the world to settle the affairs. It's going to be expensive, it's going to be messy, it's going to be, not what you want, but there's no deadline. When somebody is sick, there is an absolute deadline to what's going on. That person is still alive. They need things. They need their mortgage to be paid. They need bills, other bills to be paid. They need care to be decided. They need stuff. And if you are not in a legal position to help them, you're going to have to go to court. The only backstop for any of this is court. And you want to avoid that to the best of your ability. And this goes, a lot of people are surprised by this, but this goes from the time a person turns 18. So my children who are upstairs right now, um, are 18 and 20. They both need those documents as much as I do because they are legal, independent adults in the eyes of the financial system and the medical system. So I tried my 20-year-old's coming home. We picked him up yesterday from college. He needed to get some doctor's appointments set up for, when he's home. I called to make the appointments and they say, "Hey, you can't make an appointment for him. He's 19 or 20 at this point. And you need to have him call or you need a healthcare proxy." I'm like, oh man, of course I have one of those because, who are you talking to? But, um, it's a pain in the neck to start sending these documents around. So, um, I, just had him call at that point. But if it's a financial issue, the bank is going to say no. And if it's your mother or a father, or, an older relative who has like a full financial life, and you go to the bank and you say, "Hey, I need to withdraw some money for my mom. She's sick," the answer is going to be no. And even so, if you show up with that power of attorney and it's old or it's from another state or, it isn't signed properly or it's signed with your mother and your father and one of them is deceased, you could run into trouble with those documents. And even if you go in, which I did, with a fully valid, notarized, perfectly good power of attorney from a lawyer, customized, all set up properly, the bank might still say, "Hey, you need to fill out our own form," or the person who's sick needs to come in themselves. And when I faced this, I went in with my mom's documents and, she was in the hospital. She was completely immobile. And they said, she's going to have to come down here by herself. And I said, well, she can't walk. So, and she's pretty sick. So, you need to take this document. And they said, "No, you need to go to probate court and get it enforced." And I'm like, "No, no, you need to really help me take care of this." It took 3 appointments, each about 2 hours each, for me to argue with them and get that power of attorney process through. And I needed to do it because I had bills to pay. Um, and I had not put myself on my mom's bank account beforehand. A lot of people think go right to this. They go to, "I'll just be a joint owner of my parents' accounts." And if you go to any financial experts, which I did in my book, they say, "Oh no, don't do that. That's a bad idea." So this common thing that a lot of people do, and the second most common thing is they're like, "I have mom's password. I do not need anything other than that." But these days there's two-factor authentication. There's controls on the back end with AI and all of that. There's voice recognition. It very easily you get caught trying to pretend that you are your parent on a bank account. But here on this slide is the reasons why. I think I'm still on key documents though. Uh, no, wait. There we go. Titling accounts. So for me, when I was going through this, I was a divorced person with teenage children about to go to college. If I was a joint owner of my mother's account, those bank assets of hers would be considered mine, and I would have to file them on the federal financial aid forms, and I would also have to list them on any divorce settlement forms. Now, I was long past all the divorce settlement part of things, but still, you never know when that's going to come back. If I had any creditor issues, I would also have to claim my mother's assets as my own. And then for other families, when you have more than one child in a family, my mom, made me, the point person on all of her finances, but I have an older brother. Um, when I was being her power of attorney, my brother had access and accountability for me as the power of attorney because it's what's called a fiduciary position. I am bound by ethics to act in my mom's best interest. If I'm joint owner of her bank account, I'm joint owner. I can do whatever I want. Um, so in families that are not absolutely on the same page. Everybody trusts each other. Everybody's happy with each other. You name me one of those families where that goes all the way across the line, and I will give you like a gold star and a special prize because I have not run into one of these yet. Siblings fight over stuff like this. And the trickiest thing is that if you are a joint owner of an account and the other owner dies, you get that account. It doesn't matter what's in the will. It doesn't matter what's on the beneficiary designation. They could have assigned it pay on death to, you know, both of my children equally. But if you are the one on the account, the money goes to you because you are the now the sole owner. And you can give it half to your sibling or you could not. So you can see where that could lead to family fights. The other problem for the person who's ill is that money going in and out of that account when it's a joint ownership can mess with Medicaid eligibility. If you are, for instance, putting $1,000 a month into your parent's account um, to help them, that then counts as their asset, and they could be delayed in getting Medicaid because of that. The same principles go for adding a child to a property deed before the parent is dead. You mess up the step up in basis. So, like if a parent dies and a child then inherits the house, they get that house at the market value of the day the parent dies. But if you put the child on the deed itself before death, then half of or their portion of the house gets valued at the date that they're put on the deed, not the date of death. So if 20 years go by or 10 years go by, you could be losing out on a lot of value in terms of taxes. So you just want to keep that all straight. Um, so we get to the point here where I wanted to talk to you guys about leaving a paper trail and creating a simplified system for finances. When my mom got sick, we weren't expecting her to be as sick as she was. So she went into the hospital for a back surgery. And, her goal was to be able to walk and live independently for longer. But 2 weeks in, we realized that the back surgery was, you know, more detrimental to her than she thought it was going to be. And, she wasn't bouncing back quite as fast. So the plan was for a week in the hospital, 2 weeks in rehab, and then home. Well, we get to the end of the beginning of December, and she's not anywhere close to going home, and she's really not up to anything, right? So I figured, geez, bills must be due. I had to go to her desk, and I had to sift through all the papers on her desk and kind of reverse engineer her budget. Now, we were like a lot of families, and we had had the big discussions. What do you want? Do you have enough money for retirement? And my mom would always say, yes, we have enough money. Um, I have Social Security, I have a pension, I have savings, and we're all good. I have it all planned out. But we never got down to like the nitty-gritty, which is, Mom, do you pay your electric bill automatically or do you mail a check or do you call it in? She called it in for some reason and paid over the phone with a credit card. She had a coupon booklet to pay her quarterly maintenance fee for her condo, and it was buried in a drawer. And like I had no idea when that all happened. Um, so we are all incumbent upon ourselves to make our finances as simple as possible. Somebody needs to be able to follow a breadcrumb trail to be able to figure out what to do for you in the case of an emergency. A lot of us, especially if we're single, or widowed or divorced, we keep it all in our heads, right? This is what I do. I'm a divorced person. My oldest child just turned 20. He is now my power of attorney. I have to have a financial system that if I were to step away for a minute for whatever reason, that my 20-year-old could pick up the pieces. My mom was living a pretty complicated life. It was hard for me, and I'm really good at these things. But she did a couple of key things, like when I went looking for my dad's death certificate, which I needed at some point, there was a folder in her file labeled death certificates. When I went looking for the life insurance, same thing. Manila folder said life insurance. This is what we all need. Not everybody keeps records that simply, but they need to. Another thing a lot of people ask me is, what's this going to cost me? And the important thing to know is that you are not legally bound for the care of another human being who is not your spouse. So if your parents need to go into a nursing home and they don't have the money to pay for it, you are not required to pay for it. You are not required to pay off their credit card debts. You are not required to do any of this. But I say that as a legal thing. And I know that in functional reality, we're all going to say yes to all of these things. Um, so the typical out-of-pocket spend by a caregiver is 7,242, according to AARP. I had spent that much by the end of the first month of my caregiving journey. That was flights, that was Ubers. Um, what I found was 3 days into my caregiving journey, my mom had surgery on a Tuesday. On Friday, her caregivers needed to be paid. Now, I had her checkbook and I had the power of attorney forms in my hand, but I had not yet gone to the bank to enforce them at the bank and be her legal power of attorney, all buttoned up and good. And so I couldn't legally write my name on her check and say Beth Pinsker, for Ann Pinsker. Um, I also couldn't forge her name and say just sign her name because I have legal authority because that's not how you do it. And I was a financial professional and didn't really want to forge her name. So therefore, my other choice was to pay on my own check, but get reimbursed down the road. And so their $3,000 went right out the window right there. 3 weeks later, I get to her desk going through her bills. I find that she has messed up or delayed doing her paperwork for her long-term care insurance claim. This is a very serious thing because that was like the money we had coming in to pay for her caregivers was from that long-term care insurance policy. But she had not been feeling well and hadn't told us and had stopped filling out the paperwork like a couple of months beforehand. And after 90 days, the claim goes out of service and they want a premium again. It was $6,800 and they wanted it now. So I had to FedEx them a check from my own account. Now, I don't keep that much money sitting around in cash. I'm a mom with two teenagers. Um, so I had to move money around. I had to, free up retirement funds to pay that check for her. Now, it was probably going to come around back to me at some point, but it certainly was not going to come back FedExed. So about 4 months later, we sorted out all the paperwork and I got that money back. But it took a lot for me to be able to pay that. The next thing that we came to was how long will the money last? So you have to think about what would happen if caregiving costs increased, if the sick person needs to move, if, the adult children can't step in, if the money runs out. This is the big one for most people. So I have training as a certified financial planner. So I was able to run the numbers. These are very hard numbers to run because they are not addition and subtraction. The typical scenario that I'm presented with from readers is mom has $500,000. This seems to be the typical amount that, a 70, 80, 90-year-old widow has, in the bank when they get sick. Mom has $500,000. We're spending $15,000 a month on her caregivers and her care. Um, how long will that money last? Well, it's not 500,000 minus $15,000 each month because you're spending $15,000, but what's left is still growing. And at the same time, that $15,000 might change. Some of it might get reimbursed, and sometimes you have income coming in from Social Security or pensions or what have you. And then you have, to move all that money around and make sure it's in the optimal position. So these are a lot of moving pieces, and people have a lot of problems trying to scratch that out on the back of an envelope. That's where a financial planner can come in handy. And this is not an ad for financial planning. But I was able to do this for my family. And I noticed that when my brother and my mom would panic, they just saw all this money going out the door. And they're like, how can we possibly afford this? This is more money than we've ever spent in our entire lives. We don't even know how to cope with spending this much money per month. And the costs that we were looking at in the future were, what if we move mom back north and, we have to pay $20,000 for a medical flight and then get her settled in a new nursing home. It was all very, very expensive. And they would just go, we can't afford this. We need to cut back on care. We need to, make different decisions. And I would say, no, no, no. This is how long our money will last. We've got 3 years of money. Um, when the end of 3 years comes, we can make some other decisions. We can talk about selling mom's condo. We can, and that will give us another 2 years. Like I was able to have those discussions with everybody. Um, in addition to a financial advisor, I would say absolutely you're going to need some kind of tax professional at some point along the way. The taxes for sick and deceased people are complicated. The year my mom died, I was responsible for 6 tax returns. My own tax return, one for each of my teenage children, and 3 for my mother, because she had a tax return for the portion of the year that she was alive, a tax return for the portion of the year she was dead, and a trust tax return. So that was all too much for me. Like you said, the accountant said the word K1, and I was like, I'm out here. Take my money, whatever it takes to file these. I don't want to deal with the K1. And a K1 is a partnership. If you're a lawyer or doctor, you probably know about K1s. But it's a special tax forms that comes from trust distributions. And if you hear the word K1 and you're like, no, I'm out, just hire a tax professional. At some point, you are going to need an estate attorney. You cannot get away from this. You can either do it before or you can do it after. It's going to cost you less before and you'll have more control. If nobody does it beforehand, you're going to need it after. So it's just one of those things. You're going to have to do it at some point. The other ones on this list are voluntary. They're if you need more help, there is help available. Most of it costs money in terms of an hourly fee or a percentage of assets, but there is help available. If this all seems like too much of it for you, you can hire people to help you. Um, when you get to those professionals, particularly the estate planners and the financial planners, they will help you with your planning options. The number one thing on this list, updating beneficiaries, free, easy, will take you 5 minutes. Do it. Just go ahead, leave this phone call, go update your beneficiaries, call your parents, ask them if their beneficiaries are updated. This is a no-brainer, easy peasy. Um, the other ones are more complicated. Trusts and wills, 529 contributions, life insurance, long-term care insurance. These are all things that are rather complicated and rather individual. So your needs are going to vary, and the only people who are going to be able to tell you whether you need some of these things or whether they would benefit you is an attorney and a financial planner. For instance, do you need a trust or is a will enough for you? Well, it's going to depend on whether you have property. It's going to depend on whether that property is in your same state or a different state. It's going to depend on whether your heirs want to keep the property or if they're going to sell it. Um, so you're going to need to sort of game out all of those things with a professional. I wanted to take a moment here to talk about giving options because a lot of people punt, right? These are the 70% of people who do not have a will are punting. They are saying, there's a rule for this in the state, and the state will just, divvy up my assets. And, there's lifelong, like they'll go to my kids first, they'll split it evenly. I don't have to think about it. But there is no default option for charitable giving. And the thing is that people in this country are very charitable. It's important to people to leave a legacy of goodness behind, and it makes people happy. And part of, probably part of your plan is to give away some of your money to some good purpose that you've decided on. If you die without codifying that in some way, without writing it down in a legal document, it's not going to happen. Because even if you say in your will, I'm leaving $50,000 to my child to give away to charity, um, they get that $50,000 in their hand. There's no actual mechanism to force them to give it away once they have that money. It's sort of, you make your wishes known as best you can, but there are actual ways to make sure that your charitable wishes get done. There are beneficiary designations you can use you can leave your IRA to a charity. You can have a trust that leaves money to charity. You can have a donor advised fund that throughout your lifetime accumulates money to give to charity. And you can give money away while you're still alive. And this is often the go-to at the moment, because why should you wait until after you're dead? Give it away now. The organizations need it. You get the benefit of the joy of it, and everybody's happy. It's win-win. Um, Cautionary tales. I live my life around cautionary tales. My column in Market Watch is called Fix My Portfolio, and it is all about things that people think that they're doing wrong and how can they do better. I wrote this book as a cautionary tale using myself because my core belief is that details matter and that people learn best through stories. And when you tell people stories, they kind of get it. So I wanted to tell my story and say, hey, I lived through this experience. I had a hard time with these specific things, and I'm going to pass along that knowledge to you so that you and your family do not go through the hard times that I went through. So I'm like, I don't want my kids to go through it. I don't want your kids to go through it. And so a lot of people don't have those cautionary tales in their own lives, and they want to talk to their loved ones or whatever, and they don't know how to start the conversation. So the cautionary tales I tell people to use are celebrity ones, because there's always a celebrity story because they mess up their lives as much as we do. They have problems with their relatives. They don't do the things that they're supposed to do with their money, and it all ends up in the press. So Jay Leno, for instance, never got a power of attorney for him from his wife before she got so saddled with dementia that she couldn't sign for herself anymore. He ended up in court, public battle, front of People magazine. Um, he had to file for conservatorship over her, and you can say to your mom or dad, hey, I don't want to end up in the place where Jay Leno was. Here, read this story about Jay Leno. You used to watch him every night. Don't be Jay Leno. The Murdoch family has been fighting in court over trusts and estates for years. This is about parents setting limits and setting directions so that their children do not fight. Murdoch's got a whole bevy of children. They don't all have the same political views. They all want their fair share. Um, and they're all still fighting in court. He's still alive, even, and they're fighting in court already over his estate. Prince is the number one example these days of a celebrity who died without a will. He actually, when he died in 2016, I actually was able to document a spike in the number of people who went and got wills at that point. Um, People like thought of him as like an ancillary family member, and they were like, "Oh man, if that can happen to Prince, it can happen to us." And then there's like poor Gene Hackman, whose situation haunts me. Gene Hackman and his wife, had all the right documents in place, but what they didn't have was a care plan. They didn't have people involved in their lives enough to know to check in on them, to know their schedules, to know what was up with them. And so his wife got hantavirus, which is back in the news, and she actually predeceased him, and he didn't know what was going on because he had dementia, and then he passed away. And they were found, days later. And, I worry about this with my mom living alone. I know a lot of people worry about this with their parents. You need to be involved. Families need to talk to each other. And that was the piece that Gene Hackman and his wife were missing. So my job here, my goal here is not to scare you today. It's to help you prepare. It's to educate you about the differences in time and money, so that your family has as easy a time of it as possible. So for instance, no family communication, big frowny face. You're going to get fights. You're going to end up in court. There's nobody who can solve this for you if mom and dad don't take the lead. And after they die, it's up to a judge. Um, you get a smiley face for frequent dialogue about finances, for clear decisions and communication and setting the tone. And so that is basically the whole story. It's all about love. It's all about talking to each other. I have a website and an email here. If you have questions for me that we don't get to today, you can email me. I also, there's the resource guide, the workbook I was talking about for subscribers and people who bought the book. You can get a PDF copy of that from me for free if you email me and say you were part of this webinar. I will just email you the chapter. I think it might actually go out after this um, from the firm too. But I'm here to answer questions. My goal here is not to sell books, but to help people. My mom was a teacher, and what she wanted to do was teach people lessons. And the lesson from our life is, it's better to talk about these things and be prepared than it is to not be. So let's see if we have some questions here. I already see one from Rob. Um, do you recommend to have a parent's non-retirement brokerage or bank accounts listed as TOD, POD if there is only one parent living? Absolutely. Um, it's absolutely essential. You need to have all the bank accounts, all the accounts that end when the person dies. You need to have a beneficiary name. So that's you say non-retirement here, but that goes for retirement accounts as well. Your 401k, your IRAs, your bank accounts, any sort of deposit account where your parent has money needs to have a beneficiary name. That goes for you, that goes for your kids, that goes for anybody over the age of 18. And you want to keep those updated. I don't know. I mean, there are statistics out there that would make your eyes roll about the number of people who leave their assets to have their beneficiary as their ex-wife or ex-husband. And there are also people who have they get into the workplace, they're filling out their beneficiaries and their life insurance beneficiaries and 401k beneficiaries, and they put their mom because, they're 22. And then they get married and they never change it. So there are a lot of moms out there who are the beneficiaries of all of their children's, financial accounts, and those people are long, independent. And then the moms, pass away and they've never named a successor. And so you got to keep up with these things on a regular basis. And Bonnie, I don't know if you wanted to chime in with anything while we're getting questions in.
You have one question, but before you answer that, I want to emphasize that you made a quick mention of Gene Hackman and dementia. I can tell you personally, I was in a situation where I was the POA for a couple. One passed away, and their surviving spouse did have dementia. So you cannot rely on that surviving spouse to help you. Sometimes you think, oh, well, the spouse is alive, so I have some guidance. It doesn't always work out that way. So you
Yeah.
need to make plans in advance. You do have another question now from
Yeah.
Gabrielle.
And when you have to go through that, it's like a big detective hunt. It's like literally a scavenger hunt. You're looking through boxes. There was this one advisor I talked to whose father died, and she needed his birth certificate, and she had to go on a multi-state expedition to find everybody's, boxes in their attics. And she found it in her grandmother's attic in a bin inside, tucked inside her dad's baby book. It was, almost like too much for her to bear to have to go looking for these things. So Gabrielle asks, any strategies for trying to help parents with cognitive decline who do not realize they are slipping and don't want to let go of their finances? Yes. So this is where baby steps come into play. This is never just one conversation. Um, for instance, I know that with the older people in my life, they like to be asked for help rather than to be offered help. They are always willing to give their opinion or tell a story to you about how they took care of things. So ask them about their parents. Say that you are filling documents out for yourself and say, hey, I am filling out a will and a trust for me, for my kids. Can I name you as, X, Y, or Z? And then say, oh, do you have these documents? Can I help you, fill out these documents? What were you expecting to do? I don't know what your plans are. Or, for instance, you say, hey, it's tax time. I'm going to my accountant to do my taxes. I know this is a big deal every year. Do you want me to add your taxes onto our file this year and have my accountant help you with that? Taxes are one of the big things that is hard to do when you have cognitive decline. Same with help with bill paying. A friend of mine who I talked to for this book, his mother just shooed him away whenever he got tried to talk about finances in any capacity whatsoever. And then one year she forgot to take her required minimum distribution. Just plumb forgot it, which is a big deal if you've ever experienced this. Like there are penalties, you have to rush the money, like you need to take those RMDs, and she forgot. And he said, Mom, I can help you with this. I can figure it all out for you. Why don't you let me take over that one piece of it? And then he slowly walked his way into, helping her more. So yes, start small. Offer help when it's like a little efficient piece, and then work your way in. Sally wants to know, does the POA have to be the person named on all the recommended healthcare and financial forms? No, they can be completely separate people. I have a single friend who is 67, and she has named me as her healthcare proxy, um, but not her power of attorney. That she has saved for a niece. And interestingly, which a lot of people don't consider when you're handing over, like, handing over financial control, the power of attorney and the healthcare proxy, well, the power of attorney in particular is not necessarily the person who inherits the money. It does not mean you're giving that person the money. It just means that they're in charge. It's actually a very thankless and tedious task, and it doesn't really get you anything. So I heard of one family that was fighting over, who got to be named the power of attorney because they thought it was, you know, they were going to get more out of it. And one child was resentful of the other for being named power of attorney. And I'm like, please, like the one whose power of attorney should be glad to give it to the other one because it's just it's a lot of paperwork. It doesn't get you anything else. Um, so, like there's really no benefit to it. So, yeah, they can be completely different people. They can be not related to you at all. Um, they can be a third party that you're paying. It's just who you trust to make those decisions for you. It's not who you're giving your money to. Lara wants to know suggestion of one more thing parents and adult kids need to talk about, whether there is a safe deposit box, and if so, which bank and where is the key? Yes, this is absolutely key. Yes, where is the key? Um, Safe deposit box, which a lot of older people still have, are part of the whole banking relationship, and there's often a separate titling for those. So the bank account has one set of permissions, and the safe deposit box has another. In New York, that safe deposit language is sort of built into the standard form, but in some states like Florida, you have to specify whether the power of attorney like gives you power to get into the safe deposit box, like specifically. A lot of people also put valuable documents, important documents inside the safe deposit box. I asked a lawyer in the course of doing the interviews for my book how many times she had to go to court to get access to the safe deposit box so that they could get the documents that gave permission to people to get into the safe deposit box. And she just laughed. She's like, that's what I do every day. Um, Too many people still make that mistake. They put the will inside the safe deposit box, but you can't get into the will without the will. You can't get into the safe deposit box without the will, but it's inside this box. It's locked. The only way in is court, and that means hiring a lawyer and paying for that. So yeah, get on be power of attorney with safe deposit access, know where the key is, definitely know which bank it's at. All of those things are absolutely essential. I got into my mom's safe deposit box, and she had nothing in there. It was like opening Al Capone's vault. We thought there was jewelry in there or, whatever. It was like the real estate closing documents from her condo from 30 years before. Like, I don't know what we were expecting, but it wasn't anything. Rob asks, is it appropriate to have elderly couples as each other's POA with adult children as contingent beneficiaries, or should the kids be the primary POAs? What problems can arise with the prior? Well, this is going to depend on your family. My parents, like many couples, had like what they call sweetheart wills, and sweetheart powers of attorney, which is, two people in a couple saying, you're in charge of everything for me and I'm in charge of everything for you. A lot of couples don't even go to that position because they think, oh, I'm married to that person. I have access to anything they have access to. Not the case. And a lot of people get cut short on this. And I will point out one instance, your phone. Um, a lot of people think they know their partner's phone code and can get into their partner's phone. But they don't. The partner could have like changed the phone code in the morning and gets in a car accident. Um, and if you are locked out, you are locked out. Individual retirement accounts are individual. You don't automatically have access to these things. And so even married couples need power of attorney. I would say, I'm not a lawyer, but from a practical standpoint, anybody you name, you need successor beneficiaries. The only thing I can think of where you would have any qualms about putting a spouse as the first and then kids later would be if the spouse has any sort of dementia or cognitive problem, or if there's a divorce, situation where either the couple is pr prone to getting divorced, or the couple, or if it's your parent and your step parent, and you have a problem with your step parent. I had talked to a bunch of people for my book who did not like their step parents and they wanted their parent, who was their biological parent, to name them power of attorney ahead of the step parent, who they thought was making detrimental decisions or just after the money or whatnot. So it's going to depend on your family dynamic there, and there's no end to the bad stories that you can find with people having conflict over this sort of thing, with their siblings, with their step parents, with their parents themselves, what have you. I'm doing a story for Market Watch that comes out in the next couple of weeks, and it's on sibling conflict over the caregiving of parents. And I talked to two sisters. I talked to actually both sides of the equation, who went no contact with each other because they were fighting over the care of a parent. And, one was power of attorney to start out with. They got in a fight. The mom switched it to the other one, and then they stopped talking to each other. So, if you are in a situation where you are co-power of attorney, which is allowed in some states, um, and you don't agree or don't get along with that sibling, it can be a disaster. Like my mom named me and my brother as co-proxies on everything. And we got along, and made decisions together. but not a lot of siblings can do that effectively the whole way through the process. So,
Well, Beth, we're coming up on the end of our time together. We really appreciate you sharing your journey with us. Um, Beth has offered up her email address that you can contact her with additional questions. You can also reach out to your BLBB wealth advisor. As mentioned in registration, the first 25 people that registered will be getting a free copy of Beth's book in the mail. If you were in that 25 group, you got an email from me this morning because I need your mailing address to send it out to you. It is also available on Amazon. We here at BLBB also have a life organizer that basically it's about 12 pages, but it's that very black and white, as Beth has mentioned. You know, what bank do I bank with? What is my password? What are my account numbers? All of that sort of information. So you are welcome to reach out to your BLBB wealth advisor to get that document as well. So thank you very much. If you enjoyed yourself today and you would like to hear other topics like this that are of a value to you and your family, please reach out to me directly at bbell@blbb.com. Lots of B's and lots of L's. You can also call me in the office if you get all those letters confused at 215-643-9100. And I would love to hear what topics you feel would be of value to you going forward. Thank you again, Beth.
thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, last thing, this program was recorded, so all of you that are on the call today will get a copy of this. We encourage you to share that with other ones. It's a great way to get the conversation started. Have a great day.
Bye bye.